What's going on, modelers? As you can see, I've started the build for my giant stinger from Carolina Custom Kits. The reason they call this the giant stinger is this is the right wing half. Check out the size of this thing. This is going to be a big plane. So I just finished this up, and this plane has a fully symmetrical wing, which means the only way you can tell the wing halves apart is by the servo mount. So what you do is you build one wing half right side up and the other one upside down. In this case, the right wing half is built upside down, so the ribs are actually placed on the plans upside down. That way you end up with your servo mounts both on the bottom side of the wing, which is a good thing. So now that I've started building this kit, I have to say I am even more impressed with the quality. Carolina Custom Kits did an amazing job. All the ribs have notches so they lock into place at both the spar and the trailing edge, and there's also a jig to hold the ribs in the exact perfect alignment, so everything goes together perfectly. So far I've only run into one minor thing, and that is that the notch for the first wing rib on the main spar was 1/8 of an inch too narrow, so you have to widen that out so everything fits together just perfect. Other than that, everything has been spot on, and the wing went together really quick and easy. So before I get started on the left wing half, I wanted to go over one tip. Before you start building your wings, you're going to lay out your wing ribs. Now, a lot of the ribs will be identical. On this wing right here, all of these ribs are all W4, so they're all identical. And they usually come with multiple ribs on each sheet of wood. So what you want to do is you want to lay out both sets of your ribs next to each other for each wing. And you want to make sure that if you have multiple ribs on the same piece of wood, that you use one rib for each wing half. So let me show you. What I do is I just make 2 stacks of the ribs, right? These are all the ribs for the second wing half, and they're in order from W5, which is right here, all the way down to 1. So I make 2 stacks and I just start putting them next to each other. The 1s, the 2s, and then when you get to the 4s, you make sure that you just lay one from each sheet of wood on each stack. That way you'll end up with a rib from the same piece of wood in the same position on each wing half. Now what this is going to do for you is help ensure that your wings weigh exactly the same when you're done building them. And this is really important for lateral stability. You may have done this with your arse or a kit before. When you're getting close to done, one of the things you want to do is check your lateral stability. And that is, does it dip a wing when you lift the plane up right in the center? A lot of instructions will tell you to put a finger at the front and the tail and lift and see which wing drops, so you can see which side is heavier or lighter. Well, your wings are going to have the greatest influence in that. If one of your wings weighs a couple ounces heavier than the other one, it's always going to drop to that side. So by doing this little trick of laying out your ribs beforehand, hopefully you'll end up with wings that weigh almost exactly the same. And lateral stability is one of those things that a lot of people forget about, but it's really important, especially when it comes to stalling. When your plane's getting ready to stall, that's where this really makes a difference, because if one side is heavier than the other, when you stall, it's always going to dip to that direction. Whether it's the right or left, it's always going to want to go that way. And it's always way better when you have a plane that when it stalls, just falls straight forward. And this is one of those things that's really easy to do that can help get your lateral stability really close. So what I'm going to do now is get started on the left wing half, and when we're done, we'll weigh both wing halves and see how close they are. Boom! Both wing halves done. Check that out. I just finished up the left wing half, which is this one right here. As we said before, both wing halves are almost identical. The only real difference is the servo mounting pocket right there and there. Now, as we were saying, we want to try to keep these wings as close as possible to the same weight to help out with the lateral balance. So how close is good? Well, as a comparison, right before I started the video, I weighed these two wing halves. These are the wing halves from my SIG T-Clip 70, which is a great flying airplane. Now, if you've never owned a SIG airplane, buy one. They are built super light, super strong, and fly amazingly well. Both of those wing halves each weigh about 11 ounces, which is a really good weight for a wing that size, and they are within half an ounce of each other. So if I can match that with my wing halves, which are going to weigh closer to 2 pounds each, we'll be really good. So let's get started. If you don't have one of these, get one. This is just a fish scale. You can get them from Amazon or Banggood or wherever. But this thing weighs in ounces, grams, kilograms, and maybe even stones. It's fantastic for weighing your airplanes and components like this just to see where you stand. So what you want to do is hold it still as it boots up. Then we will turn off the lock, which basically all the lock does is it holds the maximum weight. So if you accidentally lift up on something and it weighs a little bit more for a second, it will show you just that number, which you don't want. You want it constantly updating. .4 ounces for the right wing half. And now let's check out the left. You guys are not going to believe this, but it weighs 30.6. So that is 30.4. This is 30.6. We are within 0.2 of an ounce. And that shows you just what a difference you can make doing that small little step of matching up the wood that you're going to do with each wing. The ARF wings from SIG, which are really nice, we're half an ounce off for an 11-ounce wing. These weigh 30 ounces each, and they're only 0.2 ounces difference. So that is really going to help out getting your lateral stability just perfect. So with the main wings done, we move on to the ailerons, which should be pretty straightforward, with one exception. Because the wings are fully symmetrical, the ailerons are built in a perfect triangular shape, and you build them on top of the plans just like the wing. And they are built pretty straightforward with a bunch of ribs squeezed between two sheets of balsa with a leading edge at the front. This is one of the leading edges right here, and it's built by gluing a piece of plywood and balsa together. Now the tricky part of building the ailerons is that these need to have an angle sanded into them all along the length so that they will fit properly between the two sheets of balsa and line up perfectly with the ribs. So how do you get that angle sanded into a rectangular leading edge that's this long? Well, what I did is I used a bunch of scrap wood from building the wings and designed a little sanding jig you can see right here using the plans as a guide. So what this jig does is it has an angle set into it just like that matches the angle of the leading edge of the aileron. And then all I have to do is take each leading edge, hold it in the jig, and sand it section by section until the angle is perfect. And you'll know you've sanded far enough when you get to the sketch line that Carolina Custom Kits put on each leading edge. Yet another nice touch by Carolina Custom Kits. So I'm going to get going on these, and I'll show you the result when we're all done. Alright, so I just finished with the second aileron. This is the left aileron, and the last thing I had to do was sandal the angle in the leading edge so we can get our proper control deflections when it's mounted to the wings. That means both wings and ailerons are completely done. I think we're going to end this video here. Next up, we're either going to move on to the tail surfaces or that big old fuselage, so stay tuned.